This is Fearless Rebel Radio, a podcast about body positivity, self-worth, anti-dieting, and feminism. I am your host, Summer Inanen, a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence, and the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. If you're ready to break free of societal standards and stop living behind the number on your scale, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the show. What's up, everybody? This is episode 99, and I am interviewing Tracy Brown, somatic nutritional therapist, about how to trust your body. We talk about what that means, how long it takes, and how to become more attuned in order to feel safe in your skin and have a better relationship with food. You can find all of the links and resources mentioned in this show at summerinanen.com/99. That's 99. Before we begin, I want to give a big shout out to Plate Mom, who left this awesome review. This podcast puts into words explanations for and connections to thoughts and feelings I could never understand. The perspectives and stories are so real and fun and give validation to my own story. Thank you. Thank you so much for that amazing review. It makes me feel so good to read that. So I really appreciate it. If you want to be an awesome person, you can leave a review for this show by going to iTunes and clicking on ratings and reviews after searching for Fearless Rebel Radio, obviously, and click to leave a review or give it a rating. You can also just go to summerinanen.com/review to find a direct link to that. Second, if you haven't already done so, head over to summerinanen.com/freebies to get your free guide with 10 steps to take right now to feel better in your body. It is called the 10-Day Body Confidence Makeover, and it is yours for free. You can find everything that I talk about at thebodyimagecoach.com, so you don't have to worry about spelling in an N. All right, today's guest is Tracy Brown. Tracy is a somatic nutrition therapist, registered licensed dietitian, and attuned eating coach. She guides people to learn to listen and trust signals of hunger and fullness and become their own nutrition experts while creating body neutrality, becoming more embodied, and creating more self-care practices to enhance self-worth. She teaches somatic practices for healthy nervous systems, which helps people with stress management, and her desire is for people to honor their sensitivity and feel safe to come home in their bodies. Tracy has an awesome perspective on this stuff, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So let's get started. Hi, Tracy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Summer. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and just want to honor your generosity for having people like me on to talk more about what we do.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I'm so glad that you're here today. And I have not had anyone on the show before talking about somatic therapy and I don't even know what that means. So I'm excited to learn and to have you really explain. I mean, I think I know at a general level, especially now after I kind of did some Googling, but I'm excited to really have your perspective because it's going to be unique to what's been shared on the show before.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
But
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, before we get into what that is, why don't you tell everyone how you got into this work and how you got to where you are today?
All right. So probably I don't know what the percentages are, but a lot of people. I had my own, eating and weight struggles starting in high school and throughout my early to mid 20s. So, really actually clinical disordered eating, and then kind of morphed really into just chronic dieting and exercise compulsion. It was just a switch for me from really severe to less severe, basically. And I look back on that, and these stories are all, for some of us have so many shared similar experiences of, similar personality traits and trying to make sense of a very doesn't make sense kind of world when you're a very empathetic and sensitive person. So when you look back on my experience or other people's experience, oh yeah, of course, this happened because this was a way of expression of that, even though none of us signed up for that or chose that, to struggle with food or eating. And probably like a lot of people too, I learned really early that the right kind of body to have was a small one. I think when I was 8 or 9, just had some comparisons made of my body with my sisters, and so smaller butt or whatever is better to have back in the memory bank. And then, as time goes on, you learn more and more. And again, most people who I think struggle with food are highly intelligent and very just observant of what's going on around us, but not know how to deal with that. So whether diet culture or our family situations or whatever. So of course, I'm going through recovery and rough inpatient experience, but I had a very good outpatient team of like a therapist, and a therapist was okay. And I know tons and tons of awesome therapists at this point in my life, the last, 11 or actually 11 plus years. Back then, I didn't really have a lot of options, so I chose what I had, but a really great non-diet dietitian. And I remember thinking that, oh, I got to do what she does. And I didn't know what that meant. At the time, I was 18. Yeah, I didn't know that meant that I want to be a health at every size, attuned eating dietitian. I was like, oh, what it was that was so powerful was her attunement to me, which we'll talk about later, and her giving me permission. It's like, if you want to eat 3 of the same thing every day that helps you with your energy needs, do it. There was no good food, bad food. She wouldn't have, back then, this was a long time ago, this was 1996, so it was a long time. And I was very lucky to meet somebody that was like that. So anyway, flash forward, getting through school, and basically as I got better, learning, oh my gosh, now I'm going to school to be a dietitian, and all this nutrition information is not making me, able to manage my food any better. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's very colluding with some of the stuff that I do or have done with my food, which is, count it, measure it, portion it, restrict it. And then of course the natural consequence of restricting is binging. So that's how I started to come to intuitive eating toward the end of college, was recognizing out of desperation, not because I was so genius. It was because, I keep restricting. At that point, it was very, very beginnings of the low carb phase. So I was restricting carbs a lot. So of course, I'm binging on carbs all night because I'm not eating them the first half of the day. So, a lot of those things came to be, like some of that learning came to be because of looking at what I was doing. So anyway, so by the time I finished my undergrad and working towards my internship as a dietitian, like, okay, so, I learned about intuitive eating, got a little bit more guidance from the same dietitian that I had seen years earlier about that, and then recognized that, okay, so I'm going to have to either find another profession or figure out a way to teach this, what I believe in and what's helped me, and and just kind of be like, I don't know what the better word is, but like a renegade dietitian. Like, I'm just going to have to do what I got to do if I'm going to be a dietitian, or just not be a dietitian. So, and that was the long journey of working a little bit as a daytime dietitian, and then studying and finding mentorship and doing these big, long, apprenticeships and with people who've been doing this for 30 years, and they were, amazing, and working for them, and then eventually on my own in private practice and working, in the community and online. And so that's the really, really, really short story. And I don't want people to think that my recovery or getting to be, I've been an intuitive eater probably since like 2003. I don't mean to whitewash that or make it sound super easy. It was hard letting go of diet mentality, letting go of what I thought was the right body to have to get social acceptance and to make it look like I was more strong and put together and had more willpower and felt less feelings. And that's what, being really, really small or lean or being in the gym for hours a day, what I thought that meant about me. So I also learned that so much of what we do with our bodies and our eating, it's like what's going on in our life is showing up on our plate, and recognizing that we have to decode these desires to be smaller or want to go to the gym or not want to ever move our bodies or binge or whatever it is we're doing, that all says something and means something and wants our attention.
Very good. So talk to me a little bit more about that decoding, because I think that that's so important when you say that, because that's exactly what I am always saying. I'm like, it's just an indication, like these urges or these desires or these thoughts specifically about our size or our appearance are always just these little red flags popping up to dig deeper, because something else is there. And that is just the language that we've learned to be able to articulate those feelings. So talk to me a little bit more about that decoding.
Mm-hmm. It's like the juicy, yummy stuff I love doing. Mm-hmm. Is I would say 100% of the time when we say I feel fat or I got to eat, it can be the same coin, just flip it. We are saying I feel uncomfortable 100% of the time. It doesn't matter your size. And I do know that those of us in our cultures who walk around in bigger bodies of color that aren't the cultural ideal. There's, realness and that like physical and those things that are in our lives for sure. But regardless, it still has that emotional component of I feel fat or I gotta eat. Go through the drive-through when you're not hungry 10 times means I feel uncomfortable. And so our job, it's like you will have this thing for the rest of our lives, really. Not so much dieting or not liking our bodies, but just that little, like you said, red flag or little siren of like, ooh, what's going on in me that's feeling like so much that I'm not sure what my resources are for this, or what do I do about this, or how do I problem solve it out. So it's just it's almost like you can make a little Y on a piece of paper. So you have this Y and you draw a line straight down. At the bottom is a thought or a feeling arises, and like you said, immediately gets translated into the language of food and body. And then we work our way up is, okay, so something happened. What happened? And you kind of, if you can locate it, like what's going on or what just happened, or what's the overarching felt sense of what's been happening. And you can journal that stuff out. You can make a list, whatever. And you see, though, as you go to the Y in the center, it says, I feel uncomfortable. I have a choice. And then we get to the place we can change the body game, which is, restrict, binge, overexercise, weigh ourselves, count anything or everything, whatever, body bash ourselves, withhold care even. And then the other side of the line, or on the other fork of the road, I guess, would be, well, can I problem solve this? Can I get support? Can I wait it out? Can I be with this? I guess the two questions be what's happening, or what just happened, and can I be with this? And so that's just kind of like the start of that whole process. But it gets really deep and really, really embodying, and two, it just builds so much. You're building again new neural pathways that say like, hey, I can feel these feelings and separate this from the food, separate this from my body size. And you start to build, honestly, one, more resilience, and then two, you're really building these muscles of confidence and empowerment that like, I can feel kind of crappy, but I'm going to be okay. And here are the ways that I can do that.
Mm-hmm. And I always see this with urges to diet too. So instead of like urges to eat, it's urges to diet. So the brain goes into, trying to solve a problem by thinking, what's my next diet going to be, or how can I cut carbs at dinner?
Oh, absolutely. So the really common example is, oh my gosh, I have my 20th class reunion and I need to go on a diet. And so the first thing is, okay, so what have you been thinking about with this reunion? What is happening? And people can start to see the movie in their head of like, oh, I'll go there and people will think I, look different, and they'll judge that, or they'll think I haven't been, or maybe they're judging that they haven't been successful enough in their life. So instead of it being about the feelings about that, we make it about, well, if I can just make my body look right, then I'll look successful. You can really get it to the place in the underlying feeling of, oh, I don't need to go on a diet. I maybe need to actually look more clearly at my life and do I like how it's going, and really, coach through that process of what am I really looking for? Because a smaller body isn't it. And then you get realistic, like I can't even get there in 2 days anyway, so it's a process to really open all that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just want to say, like, if people eat because they're soothing emotions, like there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, I think I just wanted to caveat that because.
Yeah. Thank you for giving, we know this to be like a given, because we
I know
we
what you're
coach it
saying.
in that style.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also recognizing that sometimes that's with awareness, that's what we're going to do, and get into a place of no shame about that. And what I find is that we might emotionally eat a little bit and it's like, okay, at least that was my experience personally, is like I got really aware of the feelings and what was happening. It's like, shoot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing it for me. And it would always make me mad, and then it would make me soften to like, okay, I just need to be with myself.
Yeah. And I always tell people that you can start to bring awareness to these thoughts and feelings and eat. Like, it's like, because instead of just thinking like, oh, there must be something, like, I have to figure this out. It's like, okay, eat and figure it out while you're eating, like, and explore it, because it doesn't have to be like a restrictive, like, you don't have to, because the denial of it can actually hinder that process of exploration within yourself sometimes.
Well, it's a total turning away from yourself, right? When you're feeling bad, and then you emotionally eat and you berate yourself and tune out from it on another level. It's like, okay, so we're going to emotionally eat, like as Janine Roth said, pull up a chair, and be with yourself with that. And you're not making it bad or wrong. And just like wanting to go on a diet doesn't make you bad or wrong. It's just another place of like I said, a crossroads of like, what's happening here? And that's where we find people like we were talking about earlier, is like we might dip a toe back in there, and then we recognize after probably a day of doing that, like, oh, yeah, this sucks. I don't want to do this again.
Yeah, we were talking about that with dieting. We were like, that process of really becoming someone who is, what you call an attuned eater, which I also want to talk about with you. But it's not just like you switch it on and then you're like, all right, I'm never dieting again. It's like we can probably count how many times we ventured back into it, even if for a day or a week or however long it was before really
I would say
went to the other side.
I mean, for me, Summer, it took me all of college. I mean, again, I had a 5-year plan. So it's like 5 years of like in and out and learning and, really having to, like see how it wasn't working. But I had to have all that time to build the safety of life happening in a more positive way that gave me courage to do something different, So it might take us months or maybe years. And that's, part of the process. And again, there's so many more people now that can be helpful to us if you're in that situation. Like there wasn't anybody, and there wasn't online, there wasn't any of these honest, resources like you and other people that are available now to help us when, 20 years ago, that didn't exist. There weren't any advertising, non-diet, body neutral coaches or dietitians that say, hey, come here to see me when you're having these these symptoms or whatever. So
yeah, so different.
It's so different. And I just share that because thankfully you don't have to spend your all college or all your middle age or whatever, trying to just survive that. So
I want to come back to the word attuned, because you used it a few times, and I'd love you to explain what that means and its importance in your work, or how you see it being really important for others.
Okay. So I'm not against the word intuitive eating at all. I mean, I'm so grateful that, Evelyn and Elise wrote the book, because it's just helped, I'm sure, thousands, if not millions of people. I like the word attuned a little bit more because, sometimes, we're attuned to the fact that we're not hungry, but we eat anyway. So it takes the rules off the whole thing, only eat when you're hungry and full, which I don't think that was the message intended, with the word intuitive eating, but it's kind of gotten that way for some people, that you can only eat when you're hungry and only stop when you're full. And I just like the word attunement because it can bridge to other things that we can be attuned to, like your needs for how much sleep and what foods work for you at different quote unquote seasons of your life, and knowing that is 100% going to change, or needs for movement, or even what practitioners you should work with, really tuning into what resonates with you the most, and what do you need now, and what used to work maybe doesn't, and moving on. And I like the flow of the idea of being more attuned, and that can mean even attuned to things that we know we need to do for ourselves, but we don't, but we're still aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really, I mean, well, what would you say is the difference between intuitive and attuned?
I don't think there's really that big a difference. It's funny with the word intuitive eating, when you think about the word intuitive, we looked it up in the dictionary. I don't know that it's that intuitive for people in this culture to not diet.
Right.
There's it's self-evident in children, you don't restrict your food for the sake of managing your emotions. That's not an intuitive thing to do. So again, I guess that's why the languaging of attuned, I interchange them both. I don't have any negative semantics either way. It's just, I use the word attuned because it just feels like there's a little bit more honoring the flow of things, if that makes sense. And,
it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, no, because I haven't heard it that much. And so I was curious to know. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's any different than intuitive eating. I just use that word interchangeably, and just my little bit of spin on things. But
it to me, it does bring a flow, and it's and you can really apply it to everything. So being attuned to your feelings, whereas intuition sometimes almost feels more forward thinking, whereas attunement sounds like, okay, what's present right now?
That's exactly right. That's why I like the definition of it. Okay, what's happening right now? Forget about what you think you're gonna what do you do tomorrow, like with your food? And it doesn't mean that like tomorrow doesn't matter. It just means right now there's not a balance of the right now with like your thoughts about the past or the future with your food or your body. So what's happening now? What does your body say about right this second? And drop into that.
Mm-hmm.
So
good. Well, I wanted to talk to you about somatic therapy because I know that that's
okay.
something that you practice. So what is it, and how does that help people with their relationship with food and themselves?
Yeah, so the word somatic is just of the body, in the body. And so, eating, of course, is an embodied thing. These are like, it starts at the beginning. So we have to have these basic needs to survive. You have to have water and oxygen and food and sleep and shelter for like basic survival. If you don't, humans are going to die within a matter of weeks. That's just how it is. And so when we feel so uncomfortable in our bodies just from those basic levels, then sometimes talking ourselves out of it doesn't change that. And that can have a lot to do with just sometimes our neural patterning that's happened since childhood. So the reason I got to this place were a couple of reasons. I was seeing like these two sections of clients over the last 11 years. So, the first 3 or 4 years of being like a intuitive eating, health at every size dietitian, really just focus on teaching people how to get renourished, settle down their eating patterns out of dieting and binging and all that, as well as like helping them with body image and decoding practices. And then I started like saying, okay, so we're doing all that and that's going really good. And the longer you do this, the more you evolve into being more holistic. And I started seeing these two groupings of here are people who are in either chronic fight or flight, who just can't slow themselves down to really, consistently, like they're actually really good intuitive eaters. It's just that like they have an 80-hour-a-week job that they can't let go of. Mm-hmm. And so that disrupts like their sleep and their eat and their self-care and their goals really for like how they want to move their bodies or whatever. And then there's this other grouping of people who just can't really get going. They're kind of, I guess, not so much in depression, but a lot of my clients do have clinical depression or anxiety or whatever. But yeah, just kind of like kind of in this slow mode, if that makes any sense, slower digestion, all these GI problems. And I was, seeing that. And then this other set of people who are really struggling, with basically trauma, developmental trauma or things that have happened to them. And so what I would see there's people that, just couldn't really get out of these patterns of feeling like as much as they knew about self-care or how much better they felt when they were intuitive eaters, they would go back to dieting or restricting or binging just because they felt like that was just what they knew and they couldn't get out of it. So anyway, I just started going down that rabbit hole of learning about how can we help people just at a really deep level be more attuned and feel more safe in their bodies to do this, to really make this stuff stick. Because some people come to us, they work with us for 6 months and they're good and they're done and they're on their way, And then some people could be with me for years and years and still really be struggling with seeing me and a really good therapist. So I was like, what is, So I had to learn about, attachment theory, and I had to learn about, there's all these different wonderful male and female practitioners on somatic therapies, and just learning how so much of this is basically really old neural programming, and from like physically your nervous system. So we've all heard about fight or flight. And so basically people's nervous systems were wired to be a certain way, and which is why they couldn't like feel their signals accurately, and they would, or like really easily get anxious about their food versus be able to like handle any ups and downs. So anyway, the somatic stuff is really just body based. Sometimes it's meditations, but learning how to feel safe in the body. And it could be things like learning how to just orient to your room. Like, what do you notice in your space? And all of these, and it sounds really simple, but these very gentle practices teach people how to feel safer, like around themselves and internally, to the point where it slows down and rewires some of those old patterns of basically being hypervigilant or feeling stuck. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if any of this stuff makes sense to you, but it's just been really powerful work to see people who have been through some like stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean trauma, and learn how to feel safer in their bodies again. And through practices of just learning how to like sense in their bodies and find, like, let's say even in their joints, a comfortable place to be, or learn how to use sound it's really interesting. There's these different sounds you can use to be able to connect, like your ability to connect more with people and trust people. And there's all these different exercises. And basically the bottom line is that Summer, you do this, you don't know that you're doing it, but you're doing it. When we sit in attunement with another human being that has learned to trust us, we are doing that work. It's just that we don't label it that way. We just think that we're sitting in front of a person and we're being really compassionate and all those kind of things. And this is what I try to teach people to do, is through, attunement and compassion back and forth between the two of us, you reprogram yourself to learn how to receive that. And that helps tremendously with intuitive eating and with self-care and just feeling like that this is hard work. So this process is you're worth the effort, and that people do care about you being fully present and flourishing in life.
Yes, the way I understand it is, I think in a lot of ways we start to feel unsafe in our bodies, and whether that is because of trauma or because of the messages that we receive that our bodies are not good enough, or who we are, or up for debate, and we start to feel really unsafe with who we are and unsure of who we are, and we disconnect from that, and we put up a shield in order to gain acceptance, approval, safety, whatever that is for every individual. And through that, we lose the connection with our inner selves and our inner wisdom. And I think we stop trusting that
Absolutely.
Part of ourselves as well. So from what I'm kind of hearing and understanding is that this is really about coming back into that and almost to sound even more woo-woo, but to become whole again, like to really like embrace all the different parts of you and become tuned into all the different parts of you.
Absolutely. No, this is really it's about a homecoming. It's about a homecoming of that I'm worthy and I am trustable, and it's about embodiment. And that's what we're all here doing anyway, like your work, my work. I just added just the very somatic piece to help sometimes when talking about it is either it's been done, then they're done that, as well as it kind of shuts us down sometimes because we're tired or we're already revved up, and it's not really helpful. So just going into the body, even the body sensations, help people just start from a place of not getting the mind so engaged with that. And it takes about 40 days to create a new neural pathway. And so we're trying to create new neural pathways of power and safety and worthiness and all those kind of things. And, the more we get support and attunement for that, whether it's external resources or our own internal resources, then the more likely it is that this stuff is going to stick. And that's the point. We don't want our clients seeing us for like 10 years.
Exactly.
And being reliant on us like forever. It's more about, no, I'm going to walk here with you through this muck, and we're going to do this together and remind you of how much wisdom, like you said, how much wisdom you actually have. How we're wired for healing. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's that quote that's like, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. And I think that that's true within ourselves too, because I use a lot of like embodiment techniques in my coaching too. So maybe I'm actually doing some of this and not really. I think I am hearing it, but and I think it's true within ourselves too, like when we can start to really tap into the way that things make us feel and shift our feelings, it's much easier to change than like our mindset and our thoughts around it. Because I always say I can't coach your intellectual mind. Like I cannot coach your intellectual mind, and you cannot intellectualize yourself out of self-doubt. Like you have to get to a deeper level with it. So I think that it's so important. And so if people feel kind of stuck, like, all right, I've been trying to do this and I read articles and I listen to podcasts and, I know all this stuff, but it's just not sinking in. Go and see somebody who actually can help you take it deeper.
I love that you talk about the intellectual piece. That's super. And that's the reason I think the reason why people get more traction with this process is because whether it's online, individual, in groups, whatever, the front of our brain is where when we're basically babies and infants, this is some of the somatic neuroscience-y stuff, but it's like we learn through these mirror neurons in the front of our brain here, this frontal part, to be attuned to another and learn, like, oh, they're smiling at me, the baby smiles back. This is where this learning happens, like you said, beyond that intellectual level. So even those intellectual types who are listening to this know that, like, that part of you is super powerful and greatly revered. It's more about how can you use that in service of being more attuned in like your heart and your gut intelligences. So how can you balance those three? Like you got this,
Yes.
let's say, yeah. So I'm really one about, like, I think we have head, heart, and gut that all are in service to us being, and I think they're like, they all have their role of which one is the most needed to do the job at the moment. And so you can't really, if you're scared about something, like you said, you can't talk somebody out of, eating cake if they 100% believe like eating cake is going to make them be 10,000 pounds. But it's more about, like, can you feel those sensations? And then talk to me about what we know about cake. And that's where, like, the juice starts to flow.
And I think this is especially hard for type A personalities. And I know a lot of the people that I work with are type A personalities. I actually don't think I've ever worked with someone who isn't a type A personality. It seems to go hand in hand, and maybe that's just who I attract as well. But that, I feel like it's often more difficult to get outside of your head when you're a type A person and you just tell me a plan, tell me what to do, and I'm going to get it done. That's generally the way that we operate as type A people. And I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for people who are type A personalities to help them get out of their head and get more connected.
Since it's interesting, since I am one too, so not a surprise.
Yeah.
I've learned over time that I guess it's this. I mean, I think I've picked up pieces for all different kinds of modalities. Whether just the thing is, like, I guess the starting place would be, you can actually learn a lot about how to help your mind in other areas slow down and get perspective by actually starting. Use your food as a doorway in. So you can't intellectualize your fullness level, because you're probably not going to be accurate. But if you can go in and check with, like, what's happening in my body, and this is how I got to the somatic embodiment stuff. I was like, I'm already doing this with, like, hunger fullness levels, and we got this down. So it's like, how do we use this just for overall safety in the body, and basically retell our stories. So start if you're more intellectual or more type A. It's like, okay, let's start with the body. Like, what do you notice with your hunger and fullness levels, and what are your patterns? And then if you start to feel more comfortable with that level of being out of your head, then you are going to be able to do the other work, which is, so I can feel hunger and fullness, but I also notice this tightness in my chest. Okay, we'll stay with that. And then notice what happens as you stay with all the sensations, and you name those sensations and start to do that process, and notice if that feels like, whoa, what's happening? I want to get out of here into my head. Really interesting. So let's come back down, and your head can watch and be a great observer of all this, but it's not in charge right now. So let's just do an experiment of actually naming the details of all these sensations. And again, this is something that maybe you could do. Anybody can do this work. This isn't like, you don't need to get, you don't need to get a master's degree to do this stuff. It's just feeling your felt sense inside yourself, and allowing yourself the compassion to, like, dip your toe in. And if you have to pop back out because that feels too foreign or too much, then that's fine. Then you can try it again. You pop back in. And I think over time you start to build enough experience to, like, recognize when you're in that place of, you feel enough feelings where you get less reactive and you can think through things. You start to feel the difference between doing your autopilot thing, which is producing, succeeding, achieving, looking the way people want you to look, to more authenticity. And that starts to feel like, whoa, I like that note a little bit more than that compulsive doing, achieving, whatever it is.
It's just easier.
It's easier because, one, we've been doing it all our lives. And then two, it's super reinforced, right? So you go on a diet, you lose weight, you look successful, you get lots of reinforcement. It's not that, and I'm trying to, like, make sure I frame it. It's not a bad thing to, like, to work and get good grades or get a promotion at your job or all those things. It's more about, like, when it's got you versus you're mastering, like you're in charge of it.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because obviously a lot of people think well, if I don't operate in that way, I'm going to be lazy. I'll never get anything done. And
Right. So
it's so polarized. It's such black and white thinking.
I'm glad you said that. It's again, it goes back to that black and white thinking that gets a lot of us in the food traps to begin with, right? And we already had that in our personality. So it's like, really interesting. That really got nurtured. It was in us and got really nurtured in us because of our environment. So it's like, well, I wonder about the function of that, just like I wonder about the function of dieting. And gosh, like, what is it that is going on to me that I feel like that was it really true about me? This is the fun stuff. Like, is it really true about me? If I just really sink here and feel this for a second, that if I didn't if I stopped trying so hard, that I would really never want to do anything ever again. I would never get off the couch. That might feel fun for about a week, but for me personally, I want to go create something now, because I think that's in our nature, is to like create and expand and learn. And I think that's just kind of how we actually truly are. I don't think that we're all like, oh, this is great, I've been laying on my mom's couch in the basement for 50 years. I don't think that, I don't think that anybody's really, I think that we're all made for more than that.
And so you said that this is really good with the opposite type of personality as well, or someone who is in more of like a slow mode. You refer
so this
to it
I would do different stuff. It's more about helping people get juiced up. So, and this again would be certain. I think it's really interesting because I think that usually a combination of like, I'm kind of slow going, but I'm trying to kind of push myself to do some stuff, but it still feels really hard. And it's still looking at those, whether it's dieting, like those expectations around like, okay, I find myself more in like this kind of sleepy eating kind of thing I do, where it's like, I'm not really binging, but I'm not really aware either. And then they like, oh my gosh, I've gained 10 pounds. I better like go on a diet. It's like this back and forth. And so it's like, well, again, bringing compassion and recognize that the sleepiness is probably for a reason, for protection. There's a function for it, just like there's a function for being hyperactive with your food in the gym and all those things. And so let's get that nervous system juiced up by bringing some awareness to what you're feeling physically in your body and the compassion. And then, sometimes it's some body movement, like literally like moving your neck around and noticing like these micro movements of like, there's a lot going on. Like if we ground our feet in and we turn our head really slowly one direction or another, we can feel like there's a lot happening here, and it starts to wake you up a little bit. And then again, I have a whole host of things that people can play with, of just waking things up a little bit, just from a really small perspective. So it's not like people setting huge big goals. So like, okay, so you haven't really got going with your degree yet, and you're still kind of like struggling with eating, emotional eating, and go get a job. Let's just stay with what it is that you actually can feel, what isn't numb, and juice that up. Where in your body do you feel some aliveness? And let's put our energy towards that. And what people find is like, oh, there's a good space in here to be, and I like that. And they just start waking up a little bit.
I feel like that could be really helpful for people with chronic illness.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Because I think one of the things that's a struggle is when people have either physical or mental symptoms, it can make it difficult for them to trust and appreciate their bodies or feel inclined to want to do
if your body hurts,
things.
If your body hurts, or you've had lots of bullying or trauma around, let's say, movement or whatever, that's actually really helpful. I've got clients right now with like lots of GI symptoms and fibromyalgia and those kind of things, of just kind of finding the places that feel good in the body. Have been really, I have one person I'm thinking in particular that's really been helpful for her, to just focus what feels good that day. Not like all the places that have pain, but let's focus on, is there any place good and feeling in your body, where it's your pinky nail, the tip of your nose, or wherever feels like this place you can land. Because it's hard when you're in pain or you don't feel like doing something. It's really easy to get really super down on yourself and start to feel hopeless. And if we can start bringing some hope and some like attunement, then that starts to kind of like get things moving.
Yeah, as I know it's always a challenge. People will say, appreciate what your body does for you. But when you have a body that's not as able as a lot of other people's bodies, that can be hard and frustrating.
It's very hard. It's very hard to, reckon with that. It's, even though we're appreciations, it's easy for us to say when our bodies are able to do stuff, but it's more about when you're feeling bad, if we can locate a place that feels okay, let alone even appreciate it, but even just be neutral about it, like, oh, okay, so when I focus on this and I allow that feeling with my, again, attunement to it, attention, it starts to grow a little bit to the place where it's like, oh, I actually forgot for like these 10 minutes we did this meditation, I didn't feel pain. I didn't notice it. It's still there. But I think when we have this, again, we get trained when we're constantly feeling pain, we go to expect pain, which makes more pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so much of this comes back to like trusting our bodies. What, people throw around that statement a lot. What does it mean to you and to trust your body or to have somebody else trust their body?
I just use it from the hunger fullness, like, where my home note is first is I think about trust. For me, it started with a mental picture of like, we were born this way. I have a little one. I get to see where that process happened all over again because I don't remember it in myself, at that age. But like, see that like she wakes up and she goes to the bathroom because she needs to go to the bathroom, and that process will happen 24/7. There's not like judgment with that or value judgment with that, or she'll eat or she won't, depending on what I put in front of her, and then she'll eat or she won't sooner or later, depending on what happened that meal, and trusting that we are wired with an ebb and flow. And by the way, I know that there are a few genetic syndromes on the planet that don't allow you to have accurate fullness signals, but that's not the population that we work with or the people listening, but we are born with this wiring to like have hunger and fullness signals. And I trust that. I trust that like we were born that way, and learning how with practice and over and over and over and over and over again, practicing, I trust that we learn more about our own internal workings. And so the more you, again, tune in and you practice and give yourself permission to not get it right, and it being a whole re-education, I think, trust gets built with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. What else were you going to say?
I was just, for those of you listening that are struggling with that restricting end of things, remember that it can take months, if not even a year or two, for your body not to panic when you get like overly hungry. That happened for me. I was like restricting, had to refeed. And then when I say refeed, like renourish, gain weight, really, and that took like a year to like fully fill up those like cellular cells with like all it needed, But I remember it took another year after that to find like, okay, when I got really hungry, that it didn't panic me. Mm-hmm. Like, that like and it felt very visceral, not mental, not even emotional. It would be like, oh, we're going to a family reunion. I don't know what time exactly lunch is going to be. And I know I'm not going to restrict, but I just don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that sounds very visceral. So we give ourselves a break for that. Like, oh yeah, your body went through some shit. So it's going to need to like have basically trauma. It's not natural for the body to be starved or to be chronically overfed. And so it takes some time, I think, for this body, like there's almost like this relationship between, you and yourself. So like food's coming regularly and you're not going to be deprived. And you have other ways when you feel sad to maybe be with yourself. So I think trust is a relationship we build with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most important thing that I think you said there was over and over and over again. Because
yes.
I think it's so hard for people because they just want to be there, which there's, not really there anyways. But to a point where they're just eating is really easy and effortless, and you're just not really thinking about food. I do feel that that's a plausible destination, but that people want to rush it. They want to just be there, and you can't just build up trust overnight. Like it really is repetition over and over, and it takes so much time.
Yeah, absolutely. And wouldn't that be amazing and I wish I would have heard that message of like, this is going to take you some time, so just slow down. Mm-hmm. If we really want to get somewhere, let's hurry up and slow down.
Yeah.
And so that's I hope if nobody else remembers anything from this talk is give yourself the space and time you needed, because you started learning these things so long ago, before you even started your first diet or hiding food sneaking like if you're food sneaking when you were 5 years old, you probably had some misattunement to yourself years before that. So cut yourself some slack, have some compassion. You are rewiring your way of being.
That's so good. So on that note, we're gonna shut it here because I think that was a great quote to end it on. But where can people find more of you?
Okay, so I have a couple of websites. It's tracybrownrd.com. And then I also have a membership site where people they do work with me individually and maybe do group, but there's a group called, it's kind of long, Attuned Eating for attunedliving.com. And that's where I have a membership site where people can join together in groups. And I do either live coaching with them or people can do self-study at 6 months. Only because I feel like it takes a while. This whole theme of today's talk is it takes time to build this stuff. So I've done these different kind of groups in 8-week segments and 10-week segments. And I recognize, people start to really get going by about week 5 or 6. So that means the program's almost done. So that's why I made a longer one.
For sure.
Just so people can keep building, stair stepping what they're doing. So yeah.
Great.
So anyway, there's that. And, there you go.
Great. Did you have something else?
I was gonna say I'm on social media like Facebook and Instagram and just posting, my little rantings about your freedom from diet culture and body neutrality and all that kind of stuff. So
good. Well, I'll link to all those in the show notes so people will be able to get in touch with you there. But thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And I learned a lot and I think you're doing some really amazing work.
Oh my gosh, Summer, thank you. And you too. I love the body image work you're doing and just your, I love the vibe of, I'm not going to put up with this stuff anymore. We're done with these times, even though I know we're not really, but we're all trying to get to the place we're done with this shit. So
yes.
I love that there's a place for people that really want to, they resonate with that. They have a place to land with you. So that's awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tracy. Rock on. So much good stuff in that episode. You can find all the links and resources mentioned in the show notes, including how to get in touch with Tracy at summerinnanen.com/99. Episode 100 is going to be on next. Oh my God, what am I going to do for it? I still haven't decided because I'm a last minute kind of person. So we shall see. And the future will tell us both what I choose to do. But thank you so much again for listening today. I will see you in episode 100. Oh my God.